So in early 2024, thousands of pages of court documents tied to Jeffrey Epstein were finally unsealed. But buried deep inside all of that was the full deposition of his closest associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. We're going to dive into what was said, and maybe more importantly, what wasn't said, because it paints this really extraordinary picture of a high-stakes legal battle. This one sentence, this phrase, or something very close to it, pops up again and again and again throughout Ghislaine Maxwell's 2016 deposition. This was for a defamation case brought against her by Virginia Giuffre. And this phrase, it basically became her shield, her refusal, and her mantra all rolled into one. This wasn't just some off-the-cuff remark. Oh no, this was a very calculated legal strategy. And understanding why this specific phrase became the absolute centerpiece of her testimony, well, that's the key to unlocking the entire conflict we see playing out in these documents. Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we have to start with what Ghislaine Maxwell refused to say. In her deposition, she and her lawyers basically built this formidable wall of silence around her time with Jeffrey Epstein. And right at the heart of that strategy was this one very carefully chosen phrase. And this really lays out the core legal clash of the whole deposition. See, on one side, the plaintiff's lawyers were arguing that questions about Maxwell's own sexual activities were absolutely crucial. They needed them to establish a modus operandi, a pattern of behavior, to show how young women were recruited. But Maxwell's defense? They consistently objected, claiming these questions were just an irrelevant invasion of privacy about consensual adult interactions. So what was the result of this legal strategy? Well, it was this incredible pattern of just profound memory lapses. Maxwell claimed she couldn't recall or she had no idea about dozens of critical events. From introducing Virginia Giuffre to Prince Andrew to even basic questions about Epstein's preferences. It was just a consistent and, frankly, effective wall of non-answers. And if you want to understand just how far this refusal went, get this. The initials GM show up over 300 times on Epstein's flight logs. So when she was asked if those were her initials, Maxwell actually responded, "How do you know GM is me?" And even suggested it could stand for Georgina, George. That's the wall of silence in action right there. But here's the thing. If Maxwell wasn't going to talk, other people were. While she was busy maintaining her wall of silence, these documents reveal testimony from multiple women who described a really consistent and chilling pattern of recruitment, a pattern that just so happens to directly contradict her memory lapses. So let's take the testimony of Johanna Schoberg, who was a key witness. Her story, as it's detailed in these documents, doesn't start in some dark alley. It starts in broad daylight. She described being approached on her college campus with what sounded like a completely normal job offer from Ghislaine Maxwell. Schoberg's deposition lays out this really clear, almost methodical progression. It started with a simple job offer, but it escalated quickly. She testified she was flown to New York on Epstein's jet with Virginia Giuffre, who she then realized was only 17. The trip apparently included a bizarre photo op where Prince Andrew's hand was placed on her breast, and it all culminated in a massage where Epstein made a sexual request that she refused. But what happened next? This is what the lawyers considered absolutely crucial. Schoberg testified that Maxwell later told her she couldn't get a camera that she'd been promised because, quote, she didn't finish her job during the massage and that Maxwell had to finish it for her. Schoberg stated that she understood this to mean her job was to bring Epstein to orgasm, which directly connected Maxwell to facilitating sexual acts. And it wasn't just the alleged victims talking. This pattern was apparently so consistent that even Epstein's household staff started to notice. Their depositions give us this corroborating, sort of behind-the-scenes look at the daily operations. You have staff members like Juan Alessi and Alfredo Rodriguez who described this consistent routine, a stream of young girls arriving for massages. Alessi's deposition states he regularly had to clean sex toys that were kept in Miss Maxwell's closet. Rodriguez described being sent out to buy expensive gifts for the girls. And crucially, they both testified that this whole routine was enforced with threats. This quote from Alfredo Rodriguez is just chilling. He described getting this threatening phone call from Maxwell after he started looking for another job, telling him to shut up and don't talk to nobody. And then he says to the lawyer taking his deposition, "I'm 55 and I'm afraid." That really just shows you the climate of fear that kept people silent. So beyond all the personal testimony, the documents also contain police reports and lists of physical evidence collected by law enforcement.
And this adds another layer of objective proof that really lines up with what the witnesses were describing.
When the Palm Beach police executed a search warrant on Epstein's residence, well, their findings mirrored the witness testimony almost exactly. They seized 2 massage tables, nude photographs, sex toys from an upstairs bathroom, even penis-shaped soap. The physical environment was a match for the stories being told. And the police investigation, it uncovered a really clear pattern. They interviewed over 30 young women who all reported sexual assault. And the reports detail this consistent modus operandi. A recruiter offers money for massages, those massages escalate to sexual acts, and the recruiter often gets paid for making the introduction. This is exactly what the plaintiff's lawyers were trying to establish in the first place.
So let's bring this all full circle. When you place Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition testimony up against the sheer weight of witness accounts, staff observations, and police evidence, a really stark contrast emerges. It really becomes a battle over truth itself.
This is the central conflict that these documents reveal. I mean, on one side, you have multiple corroborating accounts from witnesses, from staff, from the police, all describing a systematic operation. And then on the other side, you have Ghislaine Maxwell, who, when she's confronted with the details of that very operation, repeatedly claims to have no memory whatsoever. And right here, you can see her trying to control the entire narrative. She deflects, she redirects, she tries to reframe the entire deposition on her own terms, shutting down any line of questioning that strays into uncomfortable territory by just slapping that label on it, consensual adult sex. And all of this leaves us with a final, really difficult question. These documents show a legal system that's grappling with a wall of strategic silence and intentional memory loss. And they force us to ask, when direct testimony is deliberately withheld, how in the world do we piece together the truth from the evidence that's left behind?